Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Number 2, Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Half the work week officially in the rearview mirror. We are working towards the weekend now, and it's going to be a big one here in South Louisiana. Tigers and Rebels, 6:30 Saturday night in Death Valley, and the Saints in the division against Tampa at noon in the Superdome on Sunday. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN has a report that the Saints may be the favorite to land Devante Adams. We'll talk about that in 15 minutes from right now. My SEC Power Rankings for the week coming up in half an hour. I was only made aware today, and this is probably a miss on my part, quite frankly. I like sometimes there's just a lot of things going on, and I just miss something that comes up in the news feed, which is technically my job, so I probably shouldn't do that. But I missed this. That this week they're truly celebrating 100 years in Tiger Stadium. I knew it was a season-long thing because we've got a segment on it every single week on the pregame show. So I was very aware of that. But I was not aware that this was the game that everybody penciled in. And I've got a feeling, based on yesterday's player interviews, that Scott Ravelet is going to have something awesome in the Advocate coming up this week, because he was kind of talking about that with some of the players about, playing inside Tiger Stadium. And honestly, when you look at the soul of LSU football, a Saturday night in Death Valley with Ole Miss on the other sideline may resonate as well as with any opponent in any setting. I mean, yes, there's a ton of history and tradition with Alabama, ton of history and tradition with Auburn. Florida and LSU have had some classics. Tulane goes back a little bit further than all that. But Ole Miss and LSU were one of those original rivalries. And it's going to be a cool setting inside Tiger Stadium on Saturday night. And I kind of had the idea that I just wanted to kind of run through pretty quickly, because a lot of you will be on the same page as me, my favorite memories from inside Tiger Stadium personally. I've been at a lot of games over the last 18 years. I went to school at LSU for 5. I covered the team and went to every game for 3. I've been doing the pregame show now for 7 years. I haven't missed very many in the last 18 years. And then dating back into my childhood, I caught probably 2 a year. So I've been at a lot of the great moments inside Tiger Stadium. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. I guess that was 2 years ago for LSU and Alabama. I had a family wedding, so wasn't there for the overtime game. That's one of the few great all-time moments in LSU history I wasn't present for inside Tiger Stadium. But I've been there for a lot, and I still do remember. And it's weird to me when I think about it, because I don't really have any other really strong memories from that early on in my life. But I do remember the first LSU game I ever went to. It was October 30th, 1993. I was 5 years old. And LSU, ironically, for this week, was playing Ole Miss. And there was a blocked field goal at some point late in that game that allowed LSU to win the game. But I remember it was kind of chilly that night. I had a blanket on because I was a 5-year-old. And I sat on the west side of the stadium. And that was the first game I ever went to, and I don't really remember much else from being 5. I remember my K-5 classroom, but not a ton else. But I do remember being in Tiger Stadium for the first time. But it wasn't until 4 years later that I think the hook truly got set on me and kind of what my relationship was going to be like for LSU for the rest of my life. And that was in 1997 when I came down for the LSU-Florida game with my parents. My dad played in a golf tournament every year, one football home weekend, and we usually came down for that weekend and got tickets to the game. And I had a soccer game that week, and my dad said, "Do you want to play in your soccer game, or do you want to go to the LSU-Florida game? We're probably going to get crushed," is what he said. Florida was number 1 in the country. Spurrier had eaten our lunch for the better portion of that decade. And he told, at the time, 9-year-old me, like, if you come to this, it might not be a lot of fun. And I said, I want to go. So we got tickets in the south end zone under that overhang, and every touchdown LSU scored. Donaldson's pick 6, Herb Tyler on the option, Tommy Banks up the gut. All the touchdowns were scored right in front of 9-year-old me. And I vividly remember running out of the stadium down the ramps that night, jumping up, trying to touch the cement overhangs. and was just completely hooked on Tiger Stadium and LSU football and everything that it was. And I think there's a moment like that for everyone who does it. For some, it's their first game as an LSU student because they've never been before. For some, it's earlier than 9 years old because that's just part of what your family does. For some, it's later on in life when you finally get an opportunity to get in there in Tiger Stadium and you kind of experience it in its real, truest form for the first time. And that was my opportunity in 1997. I remember it very, very vividly. For the rest of my childhood, I played 1-on-0 football in the front yard as LSU against Florida. And it was Jaquez Green, it was Riedel Anthony, it was Jesse Palmer, and it was all those Doug Johnson, Spurrier. Like, I would call the games in my head, out loud, and play in the yard. It was always LSU in Florida because that was what my eyes saw for the first time. It really came to life. And that predated LSU arriving on the national scene. And when that started to happen, I was in my middle school years. And I remember being in 2001 so excited to go to the LSU Auburn game. And then that Tuesday, 9/11 happens. And my dad having to sit me down and say, hey, stop worrying about going to the LSU Auburn game on Saturday. And then it got postponed. There's some pretty other serious stuff that's going on. Maybe you ought to pay attention to that. But as an 8th grader, I was an idiot. And I was just disappointed that I couldn't go to the game that Saturday. But it turned out that obviously they put that game back on the back end of the schedule, and I went to that Auburn game, and that was when LSU won the West for the first time. And that was the first time I ever ran on the field. And I grabbed grass out of the end zone that was purple and gold and put it in my pocket and took it home and made my mom get it framed with this picture from some magazine that was How the West Was Won, is what it was called. And it sat in my room for... It's probably still up there, quite honestly. But that was the first time I'd been on the field. But that predates my favorite game, and I've told this story on the time many times. My favorite game in Tiger Stadium is not 97 Florida. It's not 2007 Florida, 2007 Auburn. It's not any Alabama game. My favorite game in the history of that stadium that I've ever been to is 2003 Georgia. Because I remember as a sophomore in high school thinking like, man, game day's coming, like, Georgia's really good. They won the SEC last year. Like, we might beat them. Like, this could be crazy. And at that point, I was old enough to kind of realize everything that was going on. And to be in that stadium for that game, as absolutely drenched in drama as it was start to finish, and to see the screen pass down the sideline that tied the score. And for the first time ever in Tiger Stadium for me, the other team scored and everyone started chanting LSU, LSU, LSU. Like, we're not going to let LSU lose today. This is our day to announce our presence on the national stage. We're not losing to Georgia. And, of course, Devery Henderson ran the kickoff down to midfield, and Mock hit Skylar Green on a busted route. And I'm on the east side of the stadium and just in absolute delirium. That LSU would beat Georgia that day in front of a national stage with Game Day and Corso and Fowler and Herb Street, and the whole thing was just unbelievable to me as a sophomore. That's my favorite day on campus that I've ever had was in 2003. I was a student for 07. It doesn't really get a lot better than that. I lived on campus with all my buddies, and you finish the games, and they were just unbelievable drama with Florida in 07 and Auburn winning on the second to last play of the game to Bird, and then being able to go to 30 of your friends with a band playing and mixing drinks, and like, it just, that's fantasy land is what that is being a sophomore at LSU and having the number one team in the country. And so the whole 2007 year sitting in the student section was just a dream. But that year also provided my saddest moment in Tiger Stadium, because even more so than 2012 Alabama, with all the revenge that was on the line that night, the loss to Arkansas in triple overtime, like, I can't even imagine what Flynn and Hester felt like, and Dixon and all those guys that we work with now, because I sat in the student section for 15 minutes after that game went final and went, man, I'm a student at LSU. We had a chance to win a national championship. We were preseason number one. I went to Starkville, Mississippi, and Lexington, Kentucky, and went to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and like, I'm going to Atlanta next week, but the chance to win the national championship is gone because we couldn't tackle Derry McFadden and Peyton Hillis and Felix Jones for 4 hours. I also maintain that the loudest I've ever heard that stadium was that day against Arkansas, not in terms of like a celebration for a score. It was coming out of a timeout in overtime, LSU had a chance on 4th down to get a stop and win the game. And LSU busted a coverage and they hit it. But coming out of that timeout, the roar that stadium produced, understanding the national championship might be on the line here, was, I remember in the moment going, this is the loudest I've ever heard this place. It wasn't the USC announcement for the Florida game or any of the ridiculous late game touchdowns we've seen. It was that moment coming out of a timeout, Arkansas coming onto the field, and LSU fans realizing that this might be the chance to keep a national championship alive. And it didn't happen, but we all know how that story ended, and it was a happy one. And memory that nobody talks about a lot, but that I have vividly ingrained in my brain was the next year. Because I've never watched a football game that even close to resembled the 2008 Troy LSU game. LSU trailed that game 31-3 with 1:26 to go in the third quarter and won it by 2 scores. LSU outscored Troy 30-0 in the fourth quarter. And nobody cares because that team didn't accomplish anything of circumstance here, and you kind of forget that in a distant memory. But everyone had left. The stadium was empty. Everyone was doing the stupid angels in the outfield thing with their arms. It was surreal to be inside Tiger Stadium with was probably 11,000 people doing the angels in the outfield arm motion, as it looked like, and those that have played video games will understand this reference, it looked like LSU had turned the video game difficulty from Heisman for 3 quarters to freshman. If you ever played NCAA football in freshman mode, you can just score a touchdown every 2 plays, and you can get an interception. You sack the quarterback, he never throws the ball. Nothing could go wrong for the last 16 minutes of that game. And you shouldn't be in that situation against Troy, but you were. And I was there for every play as a junior in college, and that is one of the most unbelievable memories I have inside that stadium. Certainly wasn't a big game, but it was a wild one. And then the last superlative I have for Tiger Stadium is 2012 Bama. I was covering the team at the time, and y'all understand what happened in 11. You win the game in Tuscaloosa, and you lose the national championship game in New Orleans. And the 12 season got off to a bumpy start. You went to Auburn and looked real clunky and found a way to win. You looked bad in Gainesville and couldn't win that game. Florida just kind of ran it down your throat, and it looked like that team wasn't going to quite figure it out offensively, and you thought they would with Mettenberger and Landry and Beckham, but they did figure it out in the second half of that Alabama game. And Mettenberger started slinging it, and Beckham and Landry started making catches, and Jeremy Hill was finding lanes, and Alabama was at the top of college football at that point, and you had a chance to unseat them and potentially move on and win the SEC and compete for a national championship. And they did everything but win that game. And I remember the pregame emotion feeling different than I had really experienced in that stadium, because there was so much revenge on the mind of LSU fans, and there was so much dislike for the other sideline, and the celebrities were all there, and that was SVP and Rosillo showing up and throwing all that praise on it. And that game actually it created that Scott Van Pelt segment where he talks about just go once to Tiger Stadium. It's different than any place I've ever been. And that environment was unbelievable. And then I was on the field, literally, on the sideline, and TJ Yeldon caught that ball 15 yards from me and scored 12 yards from me, ran right past me into the end zone. And I can still hear, it's the worst sound. The worst sound is that dull roar from the south end zone from that small visitors section. And it was just deafening silence from everybody in purple and gold, and that dull roar. And that sound is burned in my brain from that night. And you hear it every once in a while, and you may hear it some on Saturday. We'll see. But that one, it was emotionally a little different than any other, because LSU had never played in that stadium against the team that had beaten it for a national championship and then had the game under control with 3 minutes to go and let it off the hook. So that's just kind of a run through my memory lane. Beck, you got one that stands out for you that maybe I didn't mention? I mentioned a lot of them. I didn't mention Tennessee in 2000. I didn't mention the Bama game 2 years ago. But that's kind of my immediate Rolodex.
Yeah, I'm obviously a little bit younger than you, so I'm not can't go quite as far back. I think the first LSU game I went to was LSU Florida and I was probably in like elementary school. I don't remember what we lost. I'm pretty sure.
By 1,000?
I feel like it was raining as well. I don't remember. For some reason, I remember it raining. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was LSU Florida. And I was
Rex
young.
Grossman threw it for a bajillion on us in 2001.
It wouldn't have been 01. It would have had to have been maybe 3 then, if that was the next
3
time
we
they
lost.
played.
Yeah, 3 we lost. That was the one game we lost. Skylar Green ran a punt back, and they called it back for a holding call.
Yeah.
And Chris Leak hit Ciatric face on, I want to say, over the middle for a touchdown pass. It was 19-7.
Yep. And then I remember that was my first game. And then for as far as you mentioned the Troy game, I was at the 2017 Auburn game. We were losing 20-0.
Yeah.
And the DJ Chark punt return, and that one was awesome. I was also there for the Troy loss, which was not great. Probably the worst game I've been to at Tiger Stadium.
I was there for that one too. I was doing pre and post game, and that's a difficult spot to be in on the network post game.
Yeah.
When you lose to Troy,
Not great.
I mean, that's cards on the table. That is what it is. Because that's a tough spot. You're not supposed to lose to Troy.
Nope.
Which we said on the postgame show, but there's probably more emotion on the Eagle 981 postgame show than there was on the Network postgame show that night. Incidentally, I wore a shirt for the first time to that Florida game in 2003, and I loved the shirt. It was a new shirt, and we lost. I never wore it again. That wasn't going to happen.
No way.
All right. We got some Saints news coming up. Are they the front runners for Devante Adams? Jeremy Fowler from ESPN has his thoughts. I'll give those to you, as well as mine, coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports. EvolvePT.com is the website. If you've got pain and you can't be your active self, Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports is where you need to be. It doesn't matter where the pain is. Knee pain, elbow pain, back pain, wrist pain. It doesn't matter how you got the pain. Car accident, injured playing sports. Not really sure how the pain came about. They've got the technology and the want to get you back to being your active self. Doesn't matter if you're a youth athlete or somebody that's up there in age that's just trying to get back to working out, trying to get back to the golf course, pickleball court, trying to get back to the tennis courts. They can help you at Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports. And it's going to be a hands-on experience from start to finish. Robbie Bolton and his team, they don't mess around. They're not going to hand you a piece of paper and say, here's some stretches we found might work. We'll see you next week. No, they're going to get you into that chair. They're going to get you into that exercise equipment right there on site. And they're going to make sure that you're progressing, getting back to being your active self. They can do the isokinetic testing to measure the strength that's returning to you. You also got the ability to do dry needling, cupping, scraping. All that can be done right there at Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports. They can do soft tissue manipulation. EvolvePT.com is the website. They're on Starring near Highland Road. It's Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports. EvolvePT.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, hosted by the Goo Goo Dolls' #1 fan, Hunt Palmer.
All right, SEC Power Rankings coming up in just under 10 minutes. Buckle up. We'll see how that goes. Looking at a report from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler regarding Devante Adams. He writes, speaking of Adams, the Raiders have told at least one team involved in a potential trade they do not plan to front any of the bill on his $16.89 million salary. Perhaps negotiations change that, but it's been the perceived stance from Las Vegas that teams I've talked to believe the Saints might just be the favorite because they are on Adams' short list of preferred destinations and are willing to be aggressive. Yes, the Jets are involved, but the Raiders will probably go with the best package. And because Adams seems to prefer going to the Jets or Saints, the Raiders are going to start there, knowing they can expand the list if need be. As of now, those two teams appear to be in the driver's seat. To your point, Dan, I don't know who Dan is, but the Steelers have a desire to trade for Adams, hoping to address their receiver needs once and for all, but Adams is a factor in all this, and he seems ready to play with one of his former quarterbacks. So that basically in a nutshell says the Raiders aren't footing the bill. Whoever trades for him are going to have to pay him, and the Saints are willing to be aggressive and one of Adams' preferred targets. So that tells me, as we talked about right when this news broke, that the Saints have very little salary cap room, nowhere near the $16 million that's required to pay Devante Adams the rest of his salary. And if they do trade for him, they're going to have to start cooking the books. And we've tried to spend this entire offseason into this season to refrain from cooking the books. And if cooking the books, as I said initially, involves trading for Devante Adams, who's 30, and paying him over the next 3 years and restructuring Alvin Kamara's deal to extrapolate that out over 2 or 3 more years, I am vehemently opposed to this decision. The Saints are not 2 30-plus-year-old playmakers away from being a serious contender in this league. And adding those 2 guys for multiple years at significant contracts is not getting you closer. The Saints have shown restraint this offseason in how they've handled their roster and their salary cap. And that is a soft reset. And we understand looking at this right now that things don't look all peachy. Your defense is getting a little bit older. Your offensive line and quarterback can't stay healthy. There are significant issues that are cropping up. And if the Saints do this, they're returning into this cycle of absurdity. They've got to find a way to refrain from this. And I realize it's enticing. And I realize Dennis Allen's probably beating the table saying, yeah, let's do it. Because if this thing falls off the rails and the Saints go 6-11, we all know what's happening. And if you add Devante Adams to your team, you're going to get a little bit better because you don't have a very good receiving core, and he's still pretty good. The last time he and Derek Carr were together 3 years ago, he was an all-pro. He would help. But how much does he help? Does he take you from 7-11 to 9-8? Is that the help? Because what are we doing at that point? We're making sure we go 9-8 and pay these 2 guys significant money for 2 more years so we can keep pedaling and going nowhere? Because the Saints are going nowhere right now. Their record looks the same every year. That's not progress. That's going nowhere. And I believe you harm yourself down the road by helping yourself in the very short term, and that is the opposite of what the Saints need to be doing. But Fowler's right in his reporting. Like, this is the Saints' MO. This feels like something they would do. And it sounds like Devante Adams wants to do it, and I'm sure Derek Carr wants to do it because his time's running short, and I'm sure Dennis Allen wants to do it because his time's running short. It's going to be up to Mickey Loomis to sit there and go, you know what? Probably not a great idea. Probably not a great idea. And he's done that for 10 months. But the 10 years before that, he didn't. So what should I trust? Should I trust the 10 years? Should I trust the 10 months? That's kind of where we are. And it doesn't feel like the Saints are in a hurry. Now they may be in less of a hurry because Derek Carr's out for 3 weeks. And if Devante Adams really only wants to come to play with Derek Carr and he's not going to play for the next 2 weeks, what's the rush? I realize you got a trade deadline that's upcoming, and that's going to be something you have to take into consideration. But to me, this is pretty simple. But it's just not the way the Saints have operated. So I agree with Jeremy Fowler's report that feels where the likely scenario unfolds. I'm hoping against it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm not sure we can extrapolate to say that if Dennis Allen if the Saints are 3 or 4 games under 500, miss the playoffs, Dennis Allen will be fired. But I wonder then, I know that Mickey Loomis has a good relationship with Benson, with Mrs. Benson, but however, I still wonder if she may want to just reset it, just bomb it, just reset everything. And so in that regard, I could see Loomis also having the same mindset as Dennis Allen and saying, we've got to do everything we possibly can do, even if it's going to jeopardize the franchise in the future, because if we don't win this year and make the playoffs, we're both out anyway.
I understand that. And in any other organization, I think you're right. But I believe that Mickey Loomis's relationship with the Bensons and the New Orleans Saints is different than every other general manager outside of Jerry Jones, which that's different too, because he's basically in the will. Like he's basically a pseudo owner of the team. And I just don't think that Gayle Benson's going to make that move. Yeah. Like, I don't think that there would be a lot of Saints fans that would be bummed out about it, but I just don't think that's happening. I think that they move on from Allen, and I think that they bring somebody else in. And I think that if they refrain from this Devante Adams thing, and then they deal with Dennis Allen, and they go through another off season where they tiptoe, which is fine with me, you'll realize that they've figured it out and they're doing things differently. Until we see that, though, it seems a little foolish to anticipate it. You anticipate what the track record says. The track record says we're going to go get him. I I'm hoping against it because it feels like you'd be walking backwards if you do that. So we'll see. If there's any news that does break, we'll get it to you here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Also at LouisianaSports.net, because I just got a text message from Ross Jackson that he's got a Devante Adams story ready to be filed. It's not breaking news, so don't feel like it's that. He's just breaking down and reacting to some of these reports. So if you want to read more about the Saints and Devante Adams, you can do so pretty quickly here on LouisianaSports.net. All right, it's that time. We'll take a time out. We will come back. We will do SEC Power Rankings next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Neil and Melissa have been running Boudreaux's Electrical for 40 years. Every single Generac home standby generator you get from Boudreaux's Electrical Services comes with a 7 to 10 year warranty. Peace of mind, man. That's what you're looking for here from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical. You know that when these storms come, and there's a nasty one out there right now in Milton, that you don't have to worry about losing power. Whether it's just one of those Cat 1s you might want to ride out and you want to make sure that the power doesn't go out when you're riding it out, or something like these like Milton and you're going to get out of town, you don't want to come back to a house that's not had power in 3 days, that has a ruined refrigerator and freezer that's 97 degrees. Like, that's no good either. Get that Boudreaux's Electrical generator put in, you come home to a cooled off house, it's got the television working, fridge has been up and running the whole time, and you're like you never left. That's what you can have offered to you from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical. Give them a call, 985-397-1562. Again, it's 985-397-1562. Or at their New Gonzales location, 225-300-9389, 225-300-9389. Or do it the easy way. You can go online to BoudreauxElectrical.com. It's Boudreaux's Electrical Services, a premier Generac generator dealer. You can check them at BoudreauxElectrical.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Congratulations to Mark Mancuso from Bell Chase. Mark is the Week 6 winner in our 2024 College Football Pick'em contest and wins a Hooters wing party for 10 people. Don't forget to make your picks for Round 7 by tomorrow, Thursday at noon. Weekly winners will receive a Hooters wing party for 10 people, and the first place season-long champion will receive a 75-inch 4K flat-screen TV and soundbar, plus free Hooters wings for an entire year. It's the 2024 College Football Pick'em presented by Hooters.
All right. I dreaded this all morning. Got it done right about 11 o'clock. Beck, how's your confidence level in my ability to nail these power rankings?
Not very high.
Not very high, he says. I got to be honest, I don't think my confidence is very high. My confidence had never been higher last week. I was barely moving teams here or there. I basically had it licked. And then we had to watch that last weekend. And it's just a tough scene. So let's get it cranked up.
Hunt's SEC Power Rankings.
All right, give me 1 second because I got to change to a different tab.
Get to that different tab.
And I'm ready.
Let's do it.
The Texas Longhorns.
Texas is number 1 right now. Arch played great when they needed him. Now Ewers is back for Oklahoma. I don't really know a huge weakness for Texas. I don't know a huge weakness for a couple of other teams, but right now Texas looks like the most complete team. We'll go with them at number 1. Number 2.
The Georgia Bulldogs.
I moved Georgia up from 2 to 3. Obviously, you'll understand why here in a second. Maybe that was just a bad 30 minutes of football in Tuscaloosa. They played great in the second half, didn't quite get it done defensively when they had to, but I still think they're pretty good. They overwhelmed Auburn. I moved them back up to number 2 this week, and we'll see who's number 3.
The Alabama Crimson Tide.
You would think they might dip lower losing to Vanderbilt, but I think Alabama's really good. I think they played like garbage on Saturday, and I think their defense stunk. And the defense is a concern. You give up 67 points in the last 6 quarters to Georgia and Vanderbilt. That is absolutely a problem, but they've got a lot of really good players. Milroe is a good quarterback. They got freak shows at wide receiver. We know that. I'm not ready to call this a great Alabama defense, and that gives me a lot of confidence moving forward. Hopefully they'll lose again. I would like that. But they're still good, so I got them just falling 1 spot back to number 3 this week. Number 4.
The Tennessee Volunteers.
I didn't move Tennessee. Maybe this is a mistake. I still think they're pretty good. I think they played horrendously at Arkansas, but they did have a lead in the second half. They just coughed it up. Here's the deal. Nico is 10th in the SEC in passing yards per game. He's 10th in touchdowns. If you look at his performances against Oklahoma and Arkansas, 30 of 50 for 60%, only 344 yards. That's 122 a game. And looking at 150, one touchdown, like, he hasn't played great. We thought he was the next Hendon Hooker. He looks like the next Joe Milton right now. Defense is still good. They held Arkansas down, but the offense needs to keep things rolling. I still think Tennessee's good, but I'm worried about Tennessee more than I was last week.
The Ole Miss Rebels.
I've got Ole Miss at number 5. Maybe I could have moved them above Tennessee, but that loss to Kentucky was at home. They did a good job on this gut check week. You lose a game at home, you go on the road, South Carolina, worrying about their pass rush. I just need to see about that defense because I don't think they've played anybody with a good offense yet. Kentucky's offense is not good. South Carolina's offense is not good. LSU's offense is good. That's when we'll learn about this Ole Miss defense on Saturday night in Death Valley. For right now, I've got them at number 5.
The LSU Tigers.
I've got LSU at 6. That means Saturday night's a pretty big showdown between number 5 and number 6 in these rankings. The defense gets its chance on Saturday, just like with Ole Miss, to prove a point. I talked about it in the first hour. They give up 48. Well, same old, same old. They give up 24. LSU wins the game. Now we can start having a different conversation about where this football program is moving forward. But that's what we learn on Saturday night. LSU right now is at number 6.
Texas A&M!
The Aggies move into the top 7. They're up 1 spot. They're 3-0 in league play, and they play Mississippi State next. That means they'll be 4-0. Wigman looked good, but he's also looked bad at times. So we'll see. Coming off that injury, he's the starting quarterback. We'll see what that looks like. Their defense held Missouri to 254 yards. Mike Elko is a really good defensive coach. So that, I think, is going to be the hallmark of this A&M team. If the offense runs the ball and Wigman's that efficient, they'll be really good. They'll be really good. They could potentially make a playoff run. I've got them up at number 7 right now. Number 8.
The Oklahoma Sooners.
The Sooners have not been impressive to this point. Oklahoma and LSU are the teams this week playing elite level offenses that you could see taking a backslide if things go south. Oklahoma's playing Texas this week. Look, if you don't find some offense against Texas, you're going to get run off the field because Texas is going to score. Currently right now, Oklahoma is number 16 in the SEC in rushing offense and passing offense. That has got to change or else they're going to be in for a free fall here. But I've got them at 8 right now. Number 9.
The Arkansas Razorbacks.
Hogs move up 3 spots from 12 to 9 this week. Sam Pittman said today that he's hoping Taylon Green comes back for LSU. He got hurt in that Tennessee game. They're off this week. Their defense has been good. Held Auburn to 14, held A&M to 17, held Tennessee to 14. That's quality football by the Hogs on the defensive side. The offense is a little schizophrenic. The defense has been rock solid. So Arkansas moves up to number 9 this week.
The Vanderbilt Commodores.
Yes!
Wow, number 10. The Doors?
We made it. Anchor down.
That's in the top 10. I did not see this coming, but what am I supposed to do? Diego Pavia, he's running all over the place, 63 yards per game. He hasn't thrown an interception yet. They're running triple option concepts back there, running it down Bama's throats. They should have beat Virginia Tech. They should have beat Missouri. Like, they're not good, but they're not 16 anymore. That's a far cry from 16. Vanderbilt is at 10. The chat rejoices. Let's move on. Number 11.
The Kentucky Wildcats.
Vandy's coming to Lexington this week. Right now, the South Carolina game does look like an outlier for Kentucky, though. That was just an awful effort. It was so bad, though, that I can't get it out of my brain. That's why I've got them back at 11. We'll see. Could be some flip-flop in there with Vandy and Kentucky, but got Kentucky at number 11 right now, back a spot.
The Missouri Tigers.
Frauds. Absolute frauds. Got them down 5 spots this week. They play at UMass this week, which is an embarrassment in its own right. Why are you at UMass? Never play at UMass. Frauds, Missouri, number 13.
The South Carolina Gamecocks.
South Carolina's not very good. They have 0 passing offense. They're number 14th in the SEC in passing. Their next 3 games at Bama, at Oklahoma, and Texas A&M. Plus, moving forward, at Vanderbilt's no longer a layup. Clemson looks way better than they did. South Carolina's outlook's a little bit bleak right now, I'll be quite honest with you. That doesn't make me feel great about LSU, quite frankly, but that's what we feel about South Carolina now at 13.
The Florida Gators.
Gators finding a bit of a groove with the 2 quarterbacks. But look, you beat Central Florida at home. I'm not going to throw a party for you. You're still at number 14. They're moving in the right direction, though. We'll see. They're about to get to that Lions part of the schedule. However, Missouri and Florida State don't look very good, and we thought those 2 were losses moving forward. Billy Napier could be getting things together, but they got to go to Knoxville this week.
The Auburn Tigers.
0-3 in the SEC. The next two are on the road at Missouri and Kentucky. They have zero identity. I just don't know what Auburn is at all. I don't know what they're good at. They're not really awful at anything specifically except turning the ball over, but they're just not good. So they're number 15 right now. Last
The
one.
Mississippi State Bulldogs.
Coach Levy, hope you enjoyed the bye week. I hope you recruited a lot because the team that you've got right now is not good enough to win, and you lost your starting quarterback, so you're going to be in this spot probably the rest of the way. Vanderbilt's no threat to come take it from you at this point, so the Dogs are likely locked in at the number 16 spot. That's my SEC Power Rankings for the week. Beck, how do we do?
Well, I think they're pretty good. I will say that I don't know, man. It's the thing is, it's hard for Vanderbilt. It's hard for you to have got them any higher than 10 because you already had them so low in the first place.
Yes,
but I will say though, it's a bit shocking to have Tennessee so high after and Alabama so high after that loss. I mean,
somebody's got to be 3 and 4.
I get it, but
Ole Miss lost to Kentucky last week. Am I supposed to just sock that one away?
No, I understand.
LSU is in a dogfight with South Carolina. I can't stop anybody.
It's hard, but it's going to be interesting. Yeah,
I mean, I could put A&M third. They almost got shut out by Notre Dame.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe A&M should deserve. They should maybe move up a little bit more just because that was an absolutely dominating win. It was at home, but it was still a dominant win over a Missouri team that was ranked in what are they 10th or 11th?
Missouri is in the country. Yeah, they're ranked in the top 10.
Yeah, so that's a really massive win for them. I could have seen them going up maybe a few more spots. Of course,
I choose to believe Missouri is an absolute.
Yeah, maybe they're just really not bad. I would have had Vanderbilt probably at 8.
I mean, I could be convinced that Vanderbilt's better than Arkansas. I could honestly. I mean, I wouldn't have to work that hard to think that Vanderbilt's better than Oklahoma.
But Arkansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas,
Vanderbilt
Vandy are
certainly
tough.
has a better quarterback than Oklahoma.
But I think Arkansas getting that win over Tennessee was a lot of people had Tennessee being maybe in the playoff, and maybe they still could be, but still that's a massive win. So
it is. I mean, that's a great win for Sam Pittman, and they played well at Oklahoma State and gagged it away. I mean, just absolute choke, muffin punts, going for ridiculous 4th downs. Like that was a choke. So, and then that's the deal. Like LSU's schedule, you still got Ole Miss, you still got Alabama, you still got Arkansas, who looks scrappy up in Fayetteville. Vanderbilt now doesn't even look like the layup it once was. Oklahoma probably doesn't look as good as they once did, and obviously Bama's coming in here. Like, it's just a lot. But
it is.
You can take a step in the right direction on Saturday night. We'll see.
Very well.
There's your SEC Power Rankings on this Wednesday. We'll come back, play some Take It or Leave It, and get on down the road. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, AVSSLA.com is the website. You can check them out on Instagram as well at AVSS_BR. We're starting to spend a lot more time in the backyard now as the temperatures have cooled off a little bit. Myers Man's hitting baseballs all over the place. I like being out there now. And it's even better because we can crank up some tunes or a podcast while we're out there in the backyard. As the weather cools off, you're going to spend some more time outside, whether you got a backyard, pool area, got an outdoor seating area, and you want to have surround sound out there, and you want to be able to control it at the touch of a button with an app. Audio Video Security Solutions can hook you up with all of that. If you're thinking, man, I don't even know where to start. Well, I didn't either, but Mitchell Fisher handled the whole thing. They installed it in less than a day, and the customer service since then has been fantastic. All of it is controlled right there at the touch of a button on an app, and we have absolutely loved it at the Palmer House. Get that process started. Call Mitchell Fisher on his cell phone, 225-439-7920. Again, that's 225-439-7920. It's audio, it's video, it's security. It's all at one place. Audio Video Security Solutions, AVSSLA.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
.104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge and Shell are excited to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Tiger Stadium with our Draw to 100 sweepstakes. We're giving you the opportunity to join in the VIP-style celebrations on October 12th for the Ole Miss game. Sign up today at 1045ESPN.com. We'll live stream the drawing on October 10th. That is tomorrow. And the 100th name drawn will win a Stadium Club seat, sideline passes, and autographed memorabilia. It's the Draw to 100 sweepstakes presented by Shell, the rhythm of Louisiana.
All right, closing up shop here on a Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Fired up for tomorrow's show. Luke Johnson talking Saints. We'll have Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers, on. We'll go up to Oxford to check in on the Ole Miss Rebels as well. We'll start to prepare for that game in earnest, talk about some matchups in that game coming up on tomorrow's show. Only one more order of business to go on today's show. That, of course, is Take It or Leave It.
All righty, first one here. The Detroit Tigers currently up 1-0 on the Guardians. A couple of guys on base. That series is tied right now. The Tigers have the 26th highest payroll in MLB. That is 98 million. They are under the 100 million threshold. The 26th highest payroll going to the ALCS. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. I think it's awesome.
I'll take it.
I wish the Cubs would function that well. With
Unfortunately, the Cubs had the 7th highest paid payroll. They were the highest payroll to not make the playoffs.
Awesome.
So, really good
that
stuff.
That makes me super happy.
Yes.
Great,
Yep.
grand, wonderful. No yelling on the bus.
No. All right, next one real quick. Aaron Rodgers, as I mentioning on SportsCenter earlier, was on the Pat McAfee show and resents talk that he had any hand in Robert Saleh's exit. You believe him. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. It's just like those sideline interactions are impossible to deny.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason to do that. I get it, but like Aaron Rodgers is always going to be the smartest guy in the room and always going to be right, and he's not going to fake for anybody, and it's just a bad look. And so we'll see if that organization can recover. But it's a bad look.
Yeah, definitely. Last one here. LSU coach Jay Johnson had some media availability today and announced that right-handed pitcher Devin Sheeran tore his ACL and will miss the season. Huge blow. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it as a huge blow. It could have been. For those not familiar, Sheeran was a right-handed pitcher that they got from Mount St. Mary's. His big kid, 6'5", 250, threw really well against Mississippi State last year in an early season game. Big fastball, good breaking ball. They brought in a lot of guys like that, and it's a bummer for sure, but it's just part of it with baseball. Like, you're going to have one or two guys who miss the season from the pitching perspective every year, and it's unfortunate that he tore his ACL like right after they signed him. And you'd like to have all the arms you possibly can, but LSU's got a bevy of pitchers. They'll start fall camp with scrimmages tomorrow at 4 o'clock. They'll have another one on Friday at 4, and then again on Sunday at 1. If you would like to see an LSU baseball season preview, if that's something, or not a season preview, that's incorrect. A fall baseball primer is what it is, honestly. I've got it up at LouisianaSports.net right now. I've gotten some good feedback on that on Twitter. So I had some conversations with some people inside the program about some of the guys they've seen. They're excited about what they're looking for. Talked about the catcher position, talked about the starting rotation. There are two guys in Chase Shores and Cade Anderson that they really feel like they could be weekend rotation guys right now for them. But it's going to be a really, really, really competitive fall. Catcher, third base, even on the middle infield at times, and then in the outfield is just a free-for-all. So I'm excited to go out there and watch a little bit of fall baseball, and Jay Johnson said today in his media availability it's going to be fiercely competitive. So if you want to read some of that, LouisianaSports.net, it is up there under the LSU tab right about now. So that'll do it for us here on a Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We covered a lot today. Derek Carr out for a couple of weeks. Now what? Is it Rattler? Is it Haener? I gave my thoughts on that at the top of the show. You can certainly find that on YouTube at Hunt on Saints. J.D. Piquel talking national college football. We touched a little on Colorado. What does it mean for Alabama's defense? And who does he like in LSU and Ole Miss? J.D. was not super high on the Tigers' chances this weekend. You can go check that out on demand as well. It's a What If Wednesday. What if Trey Harris doesn't play? What if Spencer Rattler lights it up over the next 2 weeks? Those are what ifs that we explored in the first hour. And LSU's defense, they're thinking revenge this week. Maybe they can make that stand up. Maybe they can't, but that's the way they're thinking. And I had some sound that we played at the end of the first hour, and there's also a story up at LouisianaSports.net that talks about what Greg Penn and Savion Jones have been thinking this week as they move forward. I've got matchups to watch for LSU and Ole Miss on LouisianaSports.net as well. Open up the second hour, just kind of going through memory lane. I went through my favorite Tiger Stadium experiences since my first time in Tiger Stadium, which was back in 1994. So if you want to go jog down memory lane with me, you can go check that out on demand. Are the Saints the favorite for Devante Adams? Jeremy Fowler from ESPN thinks so. I told you why I don't think that's a great idea. And then SEC football power rankings. If you're looking for your Saints content, you can always find it at Hunt on Saints on YouTube. Looking for your LSU football content, you can find it at Hunt on LSU. And always, you can find our full shows archived each and every day. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, wherever you find your sound, you can always find us. Just search The Hunt Palmer Show. Like, subscribe, rate, and review. We certainly do appreciate it. Fired up for tomorrow's show. We got to start getting you ready for LSU and Ole Miss. Got to get you ready for the Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're getting close to the weekend. Football time's coming. I can feel it. I'm excited to get into the studio tomorrow for the show, but we'll wait 22 hours to do that. Matt's about to drive you home on After Further View coming up next. Have a wonderful Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place on The Hunt Palmer Show.